We're now learning Mishnah Masechet Zevachim, perek Yud Daled Mishnah Vav. In Mishnah Hey we learned that when Bnei Yisrael entered Eretz Yisrael and came to Gilgal, basically the time period of Sefer Yoshua, they were allowed to offer korbanot on bamot, on private mizbechot. That could be in their backyard, could be in their towns, but they did not have to come to one central place. Now we come to the next Mishnah, and we get to the next stage in Jewish history. Ba'u l'Shilo. Now the Mishkan moves to a place called Shiloh, and when the Mishkan gets there, ne'esru habamot. Bamot, these temporary korbanot, become forbidden. So looking again on our map, we see Shiloh is a little bit north and west of Gilgal. Gilgal is down here, and north and west of that, in the territory of Ephraim, is Shiloh. We may be familiar with Shiloh from the beginning of Sefer Shmuel. That is where Shmuel's father, Elkanah, would go up to every year. That's where Tfilat Chana takes place. And here's Shiloh, pretty much in the middle of the country, directly north from Yerushalayim. Now, what are we told about the Mishkan in this location? Lo haya sham tikra. The Mishkan did not have a roof. Well, we know the Mishkan never really had a roof. Ella bayit shel avanim milmatan, v'yiriot milmalan. It had, however, a stone structure. Whereas the Mishkan that was built in the Midbar by Bnei Yisrael, by Moshe, and that was carried in by Yehoshua and Bnei Yisrael, had collapsible walls, now we have a Mishkan that is made from more permanent walls. And it makes sense when we realize that this Mishkan in Shiloh stood for 369 years. That's a very long time. If it is now the year 2011 when this video is being made, so almost 370 years ago is the year 1640. That's around the time the first Jews came to America. It's a long time ago. So it makes sense that the Mishkan had permanent walls, but Yiriot Milmala, it had curtains on top, meaning it had a temporary roof. Just like by a sukkah. We could have a sukkah made out of permanent walls, use the side of a building perhaps, use the side of our houses for the sukkah. That's fine as long as we have schach, a temporary roof on top. This is still just a Mishkan. This is not the Beit HaMikdash yet because the ceiling, the roof, is still temporary. Vehi haita menucha, the Mishnah says. This was what we call menucha. What's that talking about? So let's go back to Devarim perek Yud Bet. Devarim perek Yud Bet talks about Bnei Yisrael entering the land, and down on Pasuk Tet it says Ki lovatem ad ata el haminucha v'el hanachala. Hashem, or Moshe, talking to Bnei Yisrael about what they will do when they enter the land, says, you have not yet come. Lovatem ad ata el haminucha v'el hanachala. Literally to the resting place and to the inheritance. And our Mishnah tells us that when it says the resting place, when Moshe is telling Bnei Yisrael in perek Yud Bet about coming to the place that Hashem will choose, but they haven't gotten there yet, he hints towards two such places. And one of them is the Menucha. The Menucha is the resting place, which our Mishnah says refers to Mishkan Shiloh. The Nachala, we'll see in a few Mishnayot, refers to the Beit HaMikdash itself. As we had in the last Mishnah, we'll now see some of the halachot of different korbanot when the Mishkan was in Shiloh. So we're told, Kodshei Kodashim Ne'echalim Lifnim Min HaKilaim, that the holier korbanot were eaten inside the curtains, and that means within the curtains that form the courtyard of the Mishkan. And we saw, going back, this is the Mishkan, or a model of the Mishkan in the Midbar, but you see that it's surrounded by curtains. And Lifnim min HaKilaim means that any Kodshei Kodashim, holier korbanot, could be eaten within those curtains, which means near the Mishkan itself. And we see here the different types of korbanot by four categories: Ola, Chatat, Asham, and Shlamim. The korbanot in blue are what we call Kodshei Kodashim, the holier korbanot, which is all of the korbanot Ola, Chatat, and Asham, plus the korban Shtei Alechem and Shavuot, the two sheep that were the Shlamim, and all of the korbanot with the orange background are what we call Kodshei Kalim, korbanot of lighter holiness, and they're all the other types of shlamim, basically. And one thing that makes them of lighter holiness is that they have looser restrictions on where they can be eaten. We just saw the kodashim have to be eaten within the curtains around the Mishkan, and we'll get back now to where the kodashei kalim are eaten. And our Mishnah concludes by saying, kodashim kalim u'maser sheni b'chol haro'eh, that the lighter korbanot that we just saw, all those korbanot shlamim, and maaser sheni, which is 1/10 of your crops, which you, the farmer, brings ultimately to Yerushalayim and eats there. At the time of Mishkan Shiloh, you would eat that near Shiloh, and those things, kodshim kalim and maaser sheni, can be eaten bechol haro'eh. Bechol haro'eh means anywhere from where you could still see Mishkan Shiloh. When we say bechol haro'eh, so it pays to take a look at a modern map of Shiloh and see what the land might have looked like at that time. So here we have a map of Israel. This is a current Google Earth image, and let's zoom in. You see it says Shiloh and Tel Shiloh. So Tel Shiloh, a tel is a archaeological mound, and it's right near the current city of Shiloh, and that's where archaeologists are digging and believe you had the ancient city of Shiloh from the time of the Nevi'im. Now if you look, you can see a bit of the topography, meaning the heights of the surrounding regions. This area up here, where the hand is waving, these are mountains, and over here on the right, these are mountains as well, and over here it's kind of open. So you talk about Bechol haro'eh, where could a person be and still see the mountains of surrounding Shiloh? So if the tel, somewhere over here, and now it'll get a little bit blurry. Not all of these satellite images are perfect yet. We're going to zoom in all the way to ground level, even though we won't be able to get a good image, so you can see, if you're at the part where the Mishkan is, if you're up at the top of those mountains, you could probably see the Mishkan. But once you start getting a little bit too far away, if you were to go over the hill, so you probably couldn't see the Mishkan anymore. And in fact, Rabbi Yitzchak Et Shalom, a teacher in Los Angeles, has pointed out that he has been on tours where they've shown him that somewhere on the tops of these mountains, they found little markers, marking the point from which a person could still see the Mishkan, and beyond which a person could not see the Mishkan anymore. And that's what Bechol haro'eh is. And of course, if you went off in this direction, it might be easier to see Shiloh for a greater amount of time and distance, because you had some flat plains here before you got to additional mountains.